and thank you for joining me for Facebook Live. I'm so happy that you are with me, and I'm really looking forward to what I want to share with you this time because we've been through a series of very specific steps to support you to be prepared to have the difficult conversation with the one that you love. And so, to get started, what I'd like to do is just review those three steps that I shared with you. So, I know that when couples get into a very sensitive, difficult conversation and emotions are flying everywhere in the heat of the moment, that they really can't get anything done. They really can't talk anything through. And so the first step to be prepared for a conversation is to calm down. And I gave you 5 ways to do that. And then the second step on day 2 was, or segment 2, was sharing with you 5 ways to be prepared to be heard and understood. There's some very specific things to do with how you think about the situation and how to refocus toward the successful results that you want. And then the third segment, I shared with you 3 ways to invite the conversation because it is so important to initiate the kind of conversation that you want. And there's there's more than 3 ways, but I gave you 3 of my favorites to do that. And so this time, with that preparation in mind, I want to share with you what the next step is. So, when you implement the 3 habits, do you know what is happening? You are developing a new habit. Now, habits develop, as you know, when you do something over and over again. I'm talking about good habits as well as bad habits. And so these are good habits. And so it's there's a benefit of doing these 3 things over and over again. So one is that um, with the habits and the skill building and what have you, you are prepared to go into a conversation to be heard and understood. So I believe that before you can be heard and understood, it's important for you to hear and understand your partner. So that's what you're preparing to do with those 3 steps. So I have a question for you. When you think about the 3 steps and you think about where you are now or where you were when before you were introduced to the 3 steps and where you are now with the information and hopefully trying these 3 steps out, are you where you want to be? You have the information, and I think one of the things I shared last time, how important it is to follow through and take action on it. So, wherever you are, there is a gap. My question is, how wide is that gap? And then the next question is, how do you fill the gap? So you have the 3 steps to prepare you over here. And then the next step is having the actual conversation over here. And so going into that conversation prepared, how wide is the gap from the 3 steps that you understand now and actually having the conversation over here on a scale of 1 to 10? So there's probably a gap. There's probably a gap. And that's part of the process because when you accomplish one thing, then there's one more thing to do if you're going to be completely successful. And so I have a invitation for you to join me in supporting you to bridge that gap. Because the 3 steps that you now understand are 3 steps that you can take on your own. And then taking those steps into a conversation requires information and it requires skills. And I want to not only introduce you to those skills, but to coach you step by step to get there, to develop them, to develop new habits. So, introducing the Reignite the Love Now. So, that's the name of a 90-day program that I have prepared and want to support couples with. It is a coaching program designed to support couples to have the conversation that is loving communication and which supports living a more loving life together. It's 90 days because it takes a while to develop the new habits and it requires practice. And so I want to tell you why I believe that this is so important because there's big milestones to cover in the 90 days. And the three milestones answer three questions. So the first question that it answers is, why do we argue and how do we stop? So now you have some information for yourself about what happens to you when there are arguments and the impact that it has on you. You have information through these three steps that you have been introduced to about how you how important it is to refocus your thinking and to invite the conversation. So the next step for that is to understand what's happening between the two of you because both of you are being impacted by the argument and neither one of you are having the results that you want. So that is the first milestone in the program. Um, and then the next milestone that's covered in the 90 days is how do we establish a loving communication? There are very specific things that you do. And there are these specific things that you do. They are simple steps, but they're not easy. Simple meaning that they're understandable. They're easy to understand. Implementing them is something different because when you start doing something different, and your brain is not accustomed to that new action step that you're taking, then there's resistance. And however, implementing the steps in terms of the three tools that you will learn and more support establishing a loving and intimate communication. Because if you're not arguing, what are you going to do with the space and time that you have? That's what's going to happen in milestone 2. And then in milestone 3, we are going to cover, or you are going to be supported with answering this question. How do we establish a loving and amazing relationship? So you have the communication when you have accomplished milestone number 2. And then how do you take that communication and build an amazing relationship? That's what I will help you to do in this coaching program. So here's the thing. Taking action to answer these questions will support you to bridging the gap from arguing to listening in a way that each partner feels understood, heard, respected, loved, all the kinds of things that I hear that couples want when they are having those difficult conversations. Because the difficult conversations are conversations about things that matter. But we have not been, I don't know how many people have had a manual in terms of how to have those, especially when the brain is wired for survival. I know I didn't have a manual. And Jesse didn't have a manual. We we discovered we went to um, a lot of trainings and got a lot of certifications and doing this work so that we could apply it in our own relationship and so that we could also support other couples to learn what we learned. And in this 90-day program, I've taken the years of experience and training that the two of us have had to give to you, and so that you can discover these steps and implement these steps in a way shorter amount of time than it took us. Um, it took us a while, but we wanted to do it, and we knew the benefits of going through the process, and we had it down to a science so that it became natural for us. And that is what I'd like to support you in having the same kind of experience. So take a moment and imagine what it would be like for you to have consistent, loving, respectful conversations where you both felt heard and understood. I mean, that is the foundation, because no matter what you're going through, it is so important to have a way to talk about it. When I see couples in counseling, and I asked in the beginning what it is that is challenging them the most, no matter what it is, no matter what it is, the common response is our biggest problem is communication. Now, here's the thing, we cannot not communicate, because when we're communicating and things go off the cliff, we're communicating. When we're communicating and we have the results that we want, we are communicating. We're communicating with our facial expressions, with our gestures, with our words, with our action. We're always communicating, verbally or non-verbally. The key is communicating in a way to have the results that you want. That is the key. And that's what I want to support you to. That's the results that I want you to have. So imagine yourself going into this new terrain, calm, thoughtful, and reflective, and ready to share with your partner in a way that you could be understood and that you can understand your partner. Imagine what it'd be like to show up in a way that your partner perceives you as calm, focused, and intentional, because your partner is doing the same thing that your partner that you're doing with them. And that is, there's something unconscious that's going on with the brain, scanning facial expressions, like I was saying before, facial expression, gestures, tone of voice, and what have you. And the goal is to go into the conversation that when your partner sees all of that, that they perceive you as safe and not a threat. Now, going into a conversation when you're upset is a signal. It's like an alarm bell to your partner that um, there's some kind of threat. And the threat, usually in relationship, there's a threat to the feeling of connection, because what brings couples together is that wonderful, loving feeling of connection. You know, years ago, Jesse and I used to call it um, connecting together in a way that both partners feel warm fuzzies. That was way back in the day, but it still applies today. So here's the thing, knowing what to do to develop new habits is not enough. It takes practice and support. It takes practice. You know, some people say that it takes um, developing a new habit takes, I don't know, 7 days, 21 days. Um, in a situation like this, habits take a little longer to develop. And over a 90-day period, not only do you have an opportunity to develop the habit, but you have an opportunity to get support when inner resistance gets in the way. Because what I know for sure is that when people begin to change, there is inner resistance, because on the inside, there's a threat, because it's not familiar. People keep doing the same thing over and over again, not because they feel wonderful about it. They do it over and over again because they feel comfortable. Pain in a lot of situations is comfortable, not desirable, but it's comfortable because it's all that the person knows. So let's say, so let's look at it this way. So far, in terms of the 3 steps, you have been introduced to 3 specific ways that will support you to show up differently. So you have the information. I hope that you tried it out. And because when you got to the second stair step of the skill building ladder, you have the information. And when you were introduced to it, you didn't have the skills. So hopefully you're on the third stage or the third step of the skill building ladder where you're practicing. And it's going to take practice over time. And when you joining this 90-day program, you'll be practicing with your partner, because when you're having conversations, it's still going to be important for you to continue to show up over and over again while you are bridging the gap between where you are now, where communication breaks down and arguments, to where you want to be. So it's a process. And the goal is to practice enough until it becomes natural, until it becomes a part of who you are. And that is worthy. That is worthy of 90 days. So I start off talking about how important it is for couples to feel heard and understood. That is how the program begins. Because when you have that basic tool, then you can come up with a plan to focus on where you want to be. So that is why I'm offering a free telephone consultation to take a look at what's going on in your relationship so that we can talk about a plan for you. And in looking at that plan, you can decide if you want to implement that plan on your own or if you want to join me in the 90-day program. Okay, now, many of you know me as a counselor, as a therapist, because Jesse and I have done that for years and years and years. You notice I still talk like he's here, but um, that's the way it is right now. So, but in addition to counseling, we also have done coaching, workshops, um, the skill building part. And so the way that this program is different from counseling is that it is curriculum based. Now, even though we focus on results in the counseling, there is specific results that we focus on for the program. Keeping in mind that every relationship is different and unique, the process of talking things through is the same to get to the other side. So I'd like for you to give some thoughts to that. This 30-day, this 90-day program, like I was saying earlier, supports you to apply the 3 steps. And what I want to say again, it's important to shift or take the next step from understanding what to do to practicing. And not only will you be introduced to the next step, because this is a step-by-step process over 90 days, each week you'll be introduced to the next skill building step. You'll have an opportunity to practice it during the sessions, and you'll be able to practice it at home. Because what I've noticed when Jesse and I did the workshops, people would have a phenomenal experience during the workshop. And then they would go home and try to practice on their own because they had the information, but then old habits kicked back in. We used to say to folks after they had like a phenomenal 2-day experience that you'll be back to where you were. The way your brain is wired is to go back to where you were, anywhere from the time you leave this workshop to the time you get to the parking lot to 2 weeks. And what we realized is that people are very responsive to the skills. And since we know about what happens in terms of unconscious programming, it's really important to have the support um, to stay on track. It's really, and I notice that when I do that with couples, when they're in a structured environment like that, then they do have results, because when they hit a hurdle, when they hit sometimes what I call a hiccup, um, then they're able to work it through, because sometimes they have blind spots to what's going on, um, because of the tunnel vision based on the upset. Because if you're upset, you can only see the upset, and you have blind spots to solutions. So having the information from the consultation, having the information, and having the plan, you can do it on your own, or the other option is to join the program. So there's a cost, though, of doing it alone. And the cost is, one of the biggest costs is what I was saying a little earlier, is that you can't see the blind spots. You can't see blind spots when you're in survival mode. And the other part of the cost is that the time that is wasted when you're upset and then you're not talking to each other for a day. Some couples say that they don't talk to each other for several days. And then when they do start talking again, they're not working through the issue. They're talking through some kind of a day-to-day issue, um, business of the relationship kind of stuff, but not what they were working through. Um, it helps to get the support of a guide. And having the support of a guide saves time, saves money, and it saves pain. It reduces pain, because when you're in it, I know that you're in a growth moment, a growth opportunity is what I usually call it, and and it's something that I know how to support you through. So who is this 90-day program for? This program for, and I mentioned it last time too, but I just wanted to reinforce this. This program is for couples who want to be better team players and are motivated to do the work. I mean, I know that when Jesse and I came together, we went to workshops and trainings and that kind of thing. And we read a lot of books. And so, um, what worked for us was that, and we have wonderful mentors and trainers who supported us to get through the the difficult spots, the spots that we couldn't see. And so, it's it's for couples who want and are open to having support that will help them get on the other side of whatever glitch that they had. Who The other aspect of couples that this is for, well, that's the couples that it's for. Sorry. So the couples that it's not for are couples who want the work done for them. So I can give you the tools and I can give you the support, but I cannot do it for you. There is not an easy way out. The only way to get on the other side of it is to work through it. Work through it. And then here's the other population of couples that this is not for. This is not for couples who are in an abusive relationship. A whole different level of support is needed for that. And if a couple is in a situation like that, I can refer you to someone who can help you with that. Because this program is like going to a class, a webinar. It's a teaching, it's a teaching and implementation program. Okay, so what is included in the program? All right, there are live coaching calls every week. Um, Once a week, they're 90-minute calls, and you'll have an opportunity. I'll present an information. You'll be able to talk to a real human being, and you'll be able to have your questions asked during the session. And the sessions are 90 minutes. 90 minutes. The other thing that is included is practice. You'll be able to not only hear about the next step, you'll be able to practice it in real time during our time together. And you'll be able to ask questions and process what your experience was during our workshop session. The next thing that is important included is that there will be a private Facebook group where you can ask questions between the sessions or share your experiences. Um, that Facebook group is confidential. I am a stickler about confidentiality, and anyone who's in the group takes a pledge to keep everything that is said in the group. Because while I'm teaching couples how to be safe with each other, I'm making sure that I create a safe environment for the work to be done. And here's the other part. Every 30 days, there's private one-on-one check-in calls. So you'll be able to look at where you are within each of the 30 days, and we can tweak and fine tune your action plan and also talk through any of the challenges that you have in the process. And then we'll have worksheets, and so that you'll be able to take notes during the session. In addition to having the private sessions, you'll be able to take notes, and you'll be able to also journal between the sessions. Some people are journal. Some people like to journal. Some people like to listen to the replays, which we will have. Each session will be recorded. So if you miss it live, you'll be able to watch the recording and still do the practice sessions. And even if you were there live and you want to hear some of the highlights again, those replays will be available to you. Okay, so what is the next step? So the next step, if this is something that you would like to explore and be a part of, the next step is to register for a free complimentary telephone consultation with me. And what we will do is that we will work together to develop your plan to bridge the gap from where you are to where you want to be. If you want to work together beyond the call, I will share with you how I can personally coach you how to be successful with this plan. It's a group coaching program. It's, like I said earlier, it is curriculum based. So to schedule your telephone consultation, just go to jesseandmelva.com/consultation. There's a short form to fill out to give me information about the situation that you have right now. When we meet, we will be focused on developing a plan to take you from where you are to where you want to be. So I'd love for you to join me. I love this program. I mean, I love it. And I want to share it with you. So take care. Hope to see you. jesseandmelva.com/consultation. And thank you for joining this series. Take care.